welcome to a demo of the MUX Migrator version 2.0 for Clarity. My name is Mike Pokorny. I am a Rego architect that specializes in implementing the Clarity tool. So today we are going to talk about a couple of use cases for the MUX Migrator, talk about a few limitations of the current version of the MUX Migrator, and then I will perform a demo for everybody. So when we think of the modern UX administration, we would like to use the MUX Migrator to migrate blueprints, views, and field level security from one environment to another. So currently there is no out-of-the-box way to migrate this MUX content between environments. And this all needs to be performed manually by our administration team or our support team, which can be very time consuming and could be prone to error between the environments. So the MUX Migrator helps facilitate that consistent user experience between our Clarity environments while also speeding up that migration process by our administration and support team by saving them time and effort. Additionally, we have the ability to do view administration. So just like the content above, there is not an out-of-the-box way to push or reset views for specific users or groups of users. So normally this is done through an organizational change management process to inform users that a new view is available and that they need to go manually change their view. So with this version of the MUX Migrator, we have the ability to do view administration where we can actually push views to specific end users, security groups, or resource OBS nodes. So we have the ability, if we have a new business unit onboarding, or maybe a new resource has been onboarded to Clarity, the view list could be overwhelming at times, and we have the ability to set that view for them rather than instructing them how or which views they should be using. Now I'm going to talk about just a couple of limitations. So right now, version 2.0 of the MUX Migrator currently works with Clarity version 16.1.1. The Clarity product is constantly evolving, as we know, with our quarterly releases, and they're constantly giving us new features, functionalities, and APIs, which allow us to evolve the MUX Migrator. So previous versions of Clarity did not have APIs, specific APIs that we utilize in this version. So that is why this version only works in specific Clarity versions. Additionally, we do not currently support the canvas layouts within Clarity to migrate those views which are applicable to dashboards and the status report module within our investments. And I am going to go into a demo now. So within this Clarity environment, the MUX Migrator is built upon two components. Number one is the MUX Migrator, and number two is the MUX Migrator staging table. So we will do all of our demo in the MUX Migrator object, but as we are migrating content, that content shows up in the staging table, so we know what is available to us. Okay, so we're going to walk through a couple use cases here of how we can do this. And we are going to start with migrating content from a source environment to a target environment. So I'm going to come in here and create a new instance called MUX Migrator Video. And select the integration approach. So we will go through all of these, but I'm going to pick source to target environment. So in the case of our Clarity environments being able to speak with each other, and communicate with each other, we can do that connection and say, okay, well, I'm going to pick my source environment of where I want to migrate content from, and I want to migrate it to the target environment, which is where I currently reside. So those are the two required fields, is the name and the integration approach. We could give it a description because we might be doing this as part of a release process within our organization. So we could call this our Q1 release. And I am going to now navigate within the instance. So we'll see a couple of pieces of data here. Number one, based on the type of integration approach we select, we will see different sections and different modules display within our migrator instance. We have a couple of administration fields over here on the right-hand side. So content populated, process status, and process message. So when we are deciding on, in this case, our source environment, where do we want to grab our data from? And as we are running the automated processes within Clarity, this will give us an idea if our staging table is populated and what the status is and any error messages we might get as part of this migration. And lastly, at the bottom, because I am doing source to target, we need to populate what is our source environment, where are we going to pull content from? So what is that environment's URL? What is the username? So the username would be the person that has the appropriate security rights to read and write data between the environment. So this is our Clarity username that is located within our resource record or our user record in Clarity. And then the password is our Clarity password that resides within our Clarity user record. Once again, this is not, if you're using SSO as an example, this is not your internal SSO password. This is the Clarity password. So I am going to populate this data. I'm also going to be utilizing another screen to put in the username and password. But once again, our source environment, we could put in our source environment. Where am I pulling my content from? The username, once again, is our Clarity username and our Clarity password, which I am going to just populate on my other screen. But once we put in our username here, so this could be, Clarity_user, and password could be something like password123. We would populate that data, and then we would come up here and hit populate stage content, which will go read all of the views, the blueprints, the field level security from our source environment and populate that into our staging table. So on my other screen right now, I am just going to populate my username and password and click on populate stage content. And we will see when I refresh my screen over here that it is telling us that the content has been populated and that we have pulled in a specific number of records from the source environment. Additionally, a couple things have happened in my view. So because the content has been populated, we have a new module here of where we will define what configuration items we want to migrate to this target environment. And then we also have a new action here, a new automated workflow to migrate the content to this target environment. So I'm going to navigate to the sub-object over here, this module, and I'm going to pick what content I want from that source environment to migrate to my target. So I'm going to add a row, and we'll see we have three options here: blueprints, field level securities, and view. I'm going to select a blueprint and decide what object what blueprint from what object I want to migrate to this environment. So this includes the projects, the ideas, and any custom investment type that exists in that source environment. So I'm going to pick project, and then we can come over here and pick what content we want to migrate. So we can migrate one to many. This is a multi-value lookup, but this is the list of project blueprints in my source environment. And I'm just going to pick one for this demo and say, I want to migrate this project research blueprint. Additionally, I am going to migrate a view, so it works the same way. So I'm going to select view, select which object I want the view or views from, and I'm going to come down here and pick project once again. And when I go into content to be migrated, we have a list of all of the views within that source environment, and I am going to pick just this one. We could pick one to many, but I'm going to pick active projects with planned costs. And lastly, I am going to migrate some field level security. So I'm going to add another row, select field level security, and here all we need to pick is the object, and it will go read all of the field level security associated to that object, and I'm going to pick roadmap in my case. Okay, so just to show you that this stuff does not exist in my current target environment, we're going to go look at these really quickly. So if I go to this tab, which is my project grid, this is where these views reside that I want to migrate. We do not have any views in this environment called active projects with planned costs. So that does not exist today. If I go to my blueprints, as you can see here, I already have a filter set up, but I'm looking for project blueprints with the name of research, which is what I'm trying to migrate. And I do not have any blueprints currently with the name research in them. And then if I go to this attributes tab, which is where my field level security is located, I am looking for secure fields on the roadmap object, which I currently do not have any of. All right, so now that I've decided what content I want to migrate, I'm going to go back to my properties page. And this is where I would type in my username and password again. And then I would click migrate content to environment, which will go kick off an automated workflow and migrate my blueprint, my view, and my field level security. So I am going to do that on my other screen once again. So you cannot see my password and my username. And I will run the process. And then I will refresh this screen momentarily. And after the process runs, which in my case, it is still executing, we will refresh the screen now and we will see that we have additional data that has showed up. So we have a new process status message saying it was completed. We have the ability to see messages from when the process ran and what it did. So now that that process is executed, I am going to go refresh my other screens and see that it has migrated the content. So for my blueprint, let's go to the blueprint screen. And I will refresh my page. And we should now see that I have a blueprint called Project Research, which did not exist previously. And if I click into that, it migrates all parts of our blueprint. So it will migrate how you had the properties page set up, what fields, their locations, their sizes. If we have visuals set up for our project tiles, it will migrate those visuals or define those visuals for us. It will give us the list of modules we have selected in the associated order. If we had any business rules set up, so I had hide a section if we're a basic user, it will migrate the business rules. If we have any actions associated to this blueprint, so processes we want to run under the actions dropdown, it will also migrate those. And lastly, the create from template screen will be migrated. So we see that this blueprint has been migrated from my source environment to my target environment. Additionally, we can go check on the views now. So I did not have active projects planned cost as a view in my dropdown. So let me refresh my screen. And we should see now that I have the ability to select active projects with planned costs. And what that will do is migrate what the grid layout looks like. So what fields we have in what order. It also migrates the widgets that were associated to that view and additionally any filters that we had. So it migrated my view from the source environment to this target environment. And lastly, we said we wanted roadmap field level security, which I will refresh my screen. And we should see that I have two attributes secure on the roadmap object. And what this did is it said, hey, here are the secure attributes from your source environment. Here's who's able to edit it and view it. So it brings over that security. And then it also brings over if we had any tooltips or any different labels applied to those attributes. So I can now see that it has migrated all of my content from my source environment to my target environment. And that is how we do source to target environment if our environments can communicate with each other. So I am now going to change this. And we're going to create another one because we have other options for our integration approach. So we are going to come in here and create a new one, MUX Migrator video 2, and populate the integration approach as JSON. So what this will do, and we will see how this differs a little bit, is that we have the ability to create or show this this migration content utilizing a JSON file. So this would be for the use case where our environments cannot communicate with each other. You know, we have some security lockdowns in a sense in place, and we need the ability to migrate this content from our target to our source. So it's or from our source to our target, but we need the ability to download a file and upload a file from our source to our target, which then will migrate that content. So you will see that we have a different approach here, where because we are in our source environment, we do not have to populate any staging content or anything like that. And our view looks a little different. So we see a field down here for JSON file. Our actions are different. We can export and import the file. And the MUX configuration already exists because we are reading from the environment we are in. We're not reading from an external environment or another environment. So I am going to come to the MUX configuration, and I am going to define from this environment I'm currently in, what do I want to migrate? And I'm going to pick the same 3 items that we just currently migrated into this system. So when I select Blueprint, and pick the project object once again, I am going to select the one blueprint that we just migrated, which is project research, and say that's the blueprint I want to migrate to my target environment. I'm going to come in here and select the same view that we did previously. So I'm going to do view and project as my object, and then I'm going to pick active projects planned cost. And then once again, I am going to select field level security and say I want roadmap security. So I'm coming in here, and once again, I am defining what configuration I want to migrate from the environment I am currently in to another environment, okay? So I've just defined the content that I want to migrate. I'm going to go back to properties. And because I have the associated security rights, I am going to say I want to export a JSON. So this is going to go kick off a process on the back end, an automated workflow, and we will see that it will generate a file for us in the JSON file here. So here is our MUX file. So this is the content that was just exported from this environment that we want to load into our next environment. Because what we would typically do then is we would download this file. So I would click on it and download the file. And I would go into my target environment. So, you know, we're going from dev to test or test to prod. I would go to the next environment. We'll see we had a failure here, which it looked like it actually could not export my blueprint for some reason. But we're still going to continue as planned. And we would go to our target environment and we would say, okay, we want to do MUX Migrator video 3. I would go into my target, say, okay, I need a JSON, and we are, you know, releasing content from test to prod in Q2. We'd give it some sort of description, and we would come into our target environment. We would upload our file, so our MUX file that we just downloaded from the other environment. I am going to go into this environment and delete the content out of it. So I'm going to come in here and delete my view really quickly. and to get rid of my field level security. Refresh my screen. And then once we have our file, so this is actually great for backing up how you had your configuration in previous releases also. So you could go to production in a sense and back up some views or some blueprints you might be migrating and store it in a file that then you could use to, revert back to if need be. But we would come in here now that we've uploaded the file, we would come into our actions and say import our JSON file. That will kick off an automated workflow in the system again, which will then go in, read that file, and migrate that associated content for us. So if I come back to our screens, I do not believe my blueprint will come over because I believe we had a failure previously. Okay, part of it might not have come over, but you can see now my blueprint is back, which I deleted. And once again, it will have migrated all of the properties, the visuals, the modules, rules, actions, and our create from template screen. So it will migrate, once again, the full functionality of the blueprint. If I come back to my project grid and refresh my screen, we will see that in my view list here is active projects planned cost. And once again, it'll bring in our grid view, our widgets, and our filters. And then lastly, if I go back to my secure attribute screen and refresh my screen, we should see that we have two secure attributes once again on the roadmap, same access, same tooltip, and same label. So it migrated all of my content from my source. I exported a file from my source environment. I would have went to my target environment and uploaded and then imported that file, and it migrated content from one environment to another. And then the last thing I want to demo, so I'm going to close all of these screens, and I'm going to change my project view to roadmap innovation view. So this is the view administration piece of the MUX Migrator. So once again, the use case here is we have a new resource onboarded, or we have a new business unit coming into Clarity potentially, or a new set of users utilizing a security group. By default, Clarity will associate their view to whatever the first view is that is in the recommended section, which I do not have one. So it'll say, here's the first view in the recommended section. That's what we're going to make your default view. But, in the case of a new business unit coming on, maybe we've created an IT view and IT is going to start utilizing Clarity on Monday. We can come in here and say, hey, we want to push the view to IT and say, hey, your view when you log in is not going to be the first one in the list. We want it to be active projects with planned costs. We want to pick that specific view for you because that is what we have defined as the IT view. So we can come in, so you'll see mine is roadmap innovation view currently, and that persists if I was to log out and log back in. So we can see that. And I'm going to come in here and create another instance just to show you how this works. MUX Migrator view administration. And we're going to select our integration approach as manage views. Okay, so we would be performing this activity in our target environment. So in production, if I need to push views out to a group, a specific user, what have you, I would be performing this manage views in production. So I'm going to go into here, and once again, you'll see the screen is a little different. We have a different action that says update views, and we have a different module at the top called MUX View Administration. So if I click on that tab, I'm going to come in here and we'll talk about all of these fields, but I'm going to come in here and say, okay, once again, I want to do a project view. We have a single select here, not a multi-select, but I want to push or manage the active projects planned cost view. And we have a couple options here. So number one, in the case of maybe Mike created this view and Mike no longer works for Rego, nobody can go and manage that view anymore. We would have to modify the view, save it, go delete the previous version that Mike created, if it's an active view being used. We have the ability to change the owner. So I could say, Mike previously created this and it's shared with everybody, but in the future, we want Levi to be the owner of it. Mike left the company. We want to change it to Levi so somebody can manage that view moving forward because it is an active view we use. So we have the ability to change the owner, which then allows them to manage that view. When we talked about pushing the view, so like in a sense, setting the default for somebody, we can select one too many resources in this list. So I'm going to pick myself. But we can say we want to make Mike's view, his default view next time, active projects with planned costs. Okay, so when he logs in, he no longer sees roadmap innovation view as his default. He would see active projects with planned cost. We also have the ability to select a specific OBS node. So if we have utilized resource OBSs, we can say, hey, we want all of direct sales to have this as their default view next time they log into Clarity, or all of IT because they're being onboarded. So we have the ability to select one OBS node, or we have the ability to select one too many security groups. So we might have multiple security groups, an IT project manager group, a marketing project manager group. We have multiple security groups in our environment. We can select one too many to say, once again, we want anybody that's in these 3 security groups, next time they log into Clarity, we want active projects planned cost to be their default project view from the project grid. So we have the ability to populate various fields here, but once I have picked this as my, my view and my resource in my case, I'm going to go back to the Properties tab, and I am going to select Update Views, which once again will kick off an automated workflow within Clarity. Just going to refresh my screen. We will see it has completed, and we have a message here saying, we have updated Mike's view to be active projects with planned costs. So what I am going to do is log out of our Clarity environment. And log back in. And when I go to the project grid view, we can now see that my view, which was roadmap innovation view, is now active projects with planned costs. So it has updated Mike's view to be the view that I wanted it to be. So with that is how the MUX Migrator version 2.0 works. And that is a demo of it. So if you would like this content, it is available in our RegoXChange platform. So you do have the ability to go request it and download it. So I hope everybody found that useful, and I thank you for your time, and I hope everybody has a great rest of your day.